Shabbos candles. So here we go. So how do we work? Where do we put the Shabbos candles? Who lights the Shabbos candles, etc.? And okay, so we are holding, hey Aaron, we are holding, just about to start, we're holding law or chapter 70, I think it's 74, 75, 75, 74 it is. 75, and it's halacha vav. Okay. So the Kitzur says like this. Noihagin noihagos. Hanashim shekoidim hadlakas aneris. The custom is, notice the word custom, is that the woman before they light the candles, so they're cleaning up, so they're washing, so to say, up, and the dress should be for Shabbos prior to lighting the candles. So we're going to see, obviously, there's sometimes in the winters, there's struggles to that. We need to say, to be all Shabbos-dik, we call it Shabbos-dik, to be Shabbos ready, by light candles sometimes, we're running. But that's the minhag, that's the custom. It doesn't say the halacha. But Ashrei Lehen and the Shulchan Aruch adds to that, fortunate are those who do so. To be dressed for Shabbos prior to lighting the Shabbos candles means to really enter Shabbos in properly. Now here he says something, he says it's tzricha, uses the word we must. If you're davening, not all women are able to always daven the second prayer. If you're davening the second prayer, that has to be done prior to lighting candles. And we'll see why. Why? Unlike the man who lights, we said before, if he has to light in his house for whatever reason, then he's really accepting Shabbos, and they say the Arvis, the Kabbalah Shabbos, whether it's Mizmar Shir, Liyam Shabbos, or Baruch Hu, according to the different customs. So therefore, to light and then to daven mincha would be okay. But the woman actually accepts Shabbos upon herself when she lights candles. Therefore, she can't daven the weekday daven anymore, because mincha is a weekday daven. So ki badlakas haneres mikabel Shabbos al atzma ve'en yechoy l'spal achkach mincha shachol. She's not allowed to pray a mincha of the week, which is what we pray on Friday afternoon. The Isha, now what happens if a woman who is working or what have you, she came home late, let's say, or late to where she's lighting candles. And she only comes home, again, in the winter, these things can happen all the time, only comes home within a half hour of Shabbos. So it's really time sensitive. If she were to wash and get dressed, she may end up coming to desecrate the Shabbos, because that will take too much time in preparing herself for Shabbos than to actually go over the time of lighting. So she may come to transgress the Shabbos by lighting too late or missing the lighting. So therefore, so what do we do then? So mitzvah, therefore, better that she should light the candles as is. I mean, if she rushes home, light the candles even if she's still in weekday clothing and hasn't yet prepared herself for Shabbos. Better that than she should come to desecrate the Shabbos for missing out lighting altogether. I saw Rabbi Raskin last week. We spoke about a few questions I'm going to have this week that I actually have on my side over here from a video of Rabbi Raskin, who's the Dayan of London. And he happened to be in shul in my shul last Shabbos. He came to Tzemach Tzedek. I daven in kind of a public shul. So he had a question someone asked him, if you miss lighting candles, could you have a Gentile light the candles for you? So he says you shouldn't. So here we have a suffix chila Shabbos. You're going to come to desecrate the Shabbos or not light the candles. So better just light the candles as is. Now let's say there's a husband in this story where he's home and able because he's ready to light, and his wife has not lit, and he's getting checking his watch, right? So what should he do? It's a very telling end to this law. He says better means what are the questions at hand? This is a mitzvah special to women, right? This is her mitzvah, and he doesn't want to kind of jump in on her mitzvah and she may get resentful that he's going to light the candles. So he doesn't know, should he be concerned about shalom bayis? The whole point of the candles is shalom bayis, of her resentment, or should he just light the candles because things are getting late? So the Shulchan Aruch says it's interesting that he would mention such a law in these laws, but it says just light the candles, and don't. It's not a time to be sensitive to the resentment, because there's a question of Chilul Shabbos. If she comes home and it's late, then she's going to try to get dressed, and then it's going to either miss the lighting or she's going to light on Shabbos. All right, so that's that law. Let's see the commentaries if there's any on this law. Not sure there is. 22, and the next one is 23. No, there's no footnotes on this law. Okay. Any questions? All right, let's move forward. Zayin. Im ha'ish madlik haneros. If the man is lighting the candles, v'hu tzarich lasos acher kach eize melacha, and he still needs to do things of work. Even though we said that the man doesn't technically take on Shabbos until Ma'ariv, but better to make a condition than to just rely on that. But if for whatever reason he did not make a condition, he's still a woman. If she doesn't make a condition, then she can't, but he can. It hasn't been the accepted rule. We have to understand something. It's really a minhag. The idea that no, it's a minhag. It seems like it's more than a minhag for the woman, but it's a minhag by the man. So therefore, he says, "Ain't a minhag shehu makabel Shabbos." It's not accepted. I think it's either you have to just to get a little deeper. You have to understand if lighting candles is accepting Shabbos, it's either accepting Shabbos or it's not accepting Shabbos. It shouldn't really make a difference if the man's lighting or the woman's lighting. I think is that because the women over the years have taken upon themselves to accept Shabbos with lighting the candles, therefore, if she doesn't make a condition, the assumption is she accepted Shabbos. And therefore, if lighting candles is accepting Shabbos, even that he doesn't even give the leeway of davening mincha. And I guess that would one would have to ask if a woman, and a lot of women do, go to shul on Friday afternoon and a lot of the minyanim today, especially in the winter, will have their minyan for mincha in shul when everyone's dressed for Shabbos, and then they go to a break or a speech, what have you, and then they do Ma'ariv or whatever the distance, the separation between Mincha and Ma'ariv is. But most shuls will daven Mincha on Friday in shul, around candle lighting times. And if a woman wants to participate in that minyan, right, he doesn't mention in the Kitzur the option that if the woman would like to daven, she could make a condition to not accept Shabbos and she could drive or be driven. We said melacha in extreme situations, it shouldn't be every week, but if she comes up in a situation, she can make a condition to not accept Shabbos with lighting. He doesn't give that option for mincha. It seems like maybe it's better for the woman to daven mincha biyachida alone than to daven with a minyan, even under a condition. I'm just assuming that. It doesn't say that here because he doesn't give that option. But the man, he says, could do melacha. Even if he doesn't make a condition, because most men accept Shabbos with Ma'ariv, with Kabbalah Shabbos, it's not common for the man to light candles. That's a mitzvah for the woman. Okay, I don't have a basis for what I'm saying, but I'm assuming that would be the ruling. I'll check. Where do we light? So he says, we should light in a place where the meals are. Preferably, we try to have some of the candles on the table. It's not always possible for different reasons. But if we can, we do. If not, it should be in eyesight. In the covered Shabbos. So that shows how it's for Shabbos, because it's not just a light lit in nowhere. It's a light that's going to enhance the shalom bayis, the family eating together, etc. Even if you're eating as an individual alone, then it's also adding to the covered of Shabbos. And better not to light in another place. And also to try to avoid lighting in one place and moving the candles. Means light them and keep them there. However, he writes, "Ach b'shas hatchak," in an extreme situation, you're going to isha chayla, where the woman is sick. Ein chayla lechas al shulchan, she can't go to the table of the house to light the candles. So, and she has obviously people in the house that could help her. So, madlekes keshiva mita, she could light while she's in bed if that's what has to happen. Someone else can move it. Let's say a Gentile or a man who hasn't accepted Shabbos yet can move them onto the table because it'd be difficult for her to go to the table to light. He called why? Because that's her home. Her home is the house. So even if she's not at the house right now, hold on, Aaron. Then that's okay. Yes, Aaron.
You keep bringing up the times. So I'm going to ask, in a perfect world, you're working. When's the best? And you have to work. So both one or both people have to work. When's the best time? When should you be home? Like, when should you leave? When should you be home? When should you close your business?
Okay, that's not the same question. Lighting candles and closing business is not the same. Closing up weekday work is preferably done before chatzos, before midday. Midday would not be 12 o'clock, but midday is 12 hours of the day according to halacha zman. So you could check on every day when is midday. Preferably, one should stop working from chatzos. Not always, it's not always an option to stop working from chatzos, which is midday. Let's say today, I think midday would be somewhere in between. It would be around 12 o'clock or 11:30 or 11, 12, 15. Times keep on changing as winter, summer. But the halacha is to try to stop working after midday. It's kind of, you should go into Shabbos from chatzos. If you can't, hold on, Rebecca. If you can't go in after, if you can't, you could work up till close to Shabbos, like he says, even within a half hour before Shabbos. The custom by women in most cities around the world is to light candles 18 minutes before Shkia, before sunset. In Yerushalayim, the minhag is to accept it. I think it's either 40 or 38 minutes. Women try to accept Shabbos even earlier. Other places, I know Haifa, I think the earliest is 40 minutes if it's a regular Shabbos, not just like a summer Shabbos, we're taking Shabbos early. And traditionally around, let's say if you're in New York, it would be 80 minutes, but that's the Shabbos time. Whatever it says Shabbos time of lighting, that's 80 minutes before Shkia. If for whatever reason you don't light in those 80 minutes, you have until the end of the 80 minutes. Once it becomes Shkia, Shkia is already Suffolk Laila. It's doubtful night. It's already, you're not supposed to be lighting candles. It's prohibited. Rebecca.
Yeah, that's actually what my question was about. I know like Sephardi women do not use the 18 minutes, and a lot of like women who are more from do not use the 18 minutes, but like a lot of people I know do use the 18 minutes. So is it like halacha that not to use the 18 minutes for malacha, like to light before the 18 minutes start, and you should only use the 18 minutes in like an emergency kind of situation? Or is it okay, like some people regularly light once the 18 minutes have started? Like, what's the status of that time?
The status is that there's an idea of moisif mishabes lachol, and this is a special thing that women do because the men are not conscious of the 18 minutes at all. The women are. This is a special idea for the women. This their special time for Shabbos to be, taking a Shabbos of 18 minutes early. You should not make it part of your schedule to avoid the 18 minutes. You should try. I mean, a lot of times it's not easy and it's not possible, and then 40 minutes is even more difficult. But that should not be like you're accustomed to disregard 80 minutes. Disregard 80 minutes is disregarding a custom, and we know we have the Trubus Rashba that talks about this importance of a minhag. I think that it's brought down that even the songs mothers sing to children, which is a minhag, is holy. So 80 minutes is holy. And to disregard it is a disregard of a minhag, which is not it's not preferable at all. So to have a system where you disregard the 80 minutes, I don't think that's but
But
if you're working and it's the winter and you literally don't come home on time, that's something else.
But like let's say 3 weeks in a row, I really do try to light early, like before the Zman. So let's say 3 weeks in a row I light before a few minutes before the Zman, and then the fourth week like something happens and I'm like not able to. So then like how bad is that?
It's not a question of bad. It's just a question you have to. Yeah, listen. In time management, we all know about time management. Time management, it's a decision. You could strategize to make a time management. There's obviously a lot of things that are out of our control, but time management, yeah, view it like you would view anything that's important to you. So if something was really important to you, you have to how careful would you be in the 18 minutes? And that's how you should
Yeah.
harvest.
I actually noticed, by the way, that if like you light before the Zman and like make a bakasha, say like, I'm lighting early and this listed, whatever, like I noticed the whole week goes differently. It really is very powerful. It makes a big difference. So I really try to light early.
Yeah, so there you go. I mean, it's not a question of how bad it is, but it's not a tshuva, a question about tshuva. It's a question about a decision to be in time management. Yes, Aaron.
I was just gonna say compliment what you said. Um, my son goes to YU, so that's how I know this stuff. The YU is a modern. They take everything to the modern extreme, and they even stress the 18 minutes.
Say that again? Yes, okay.
Okay, so they have a modern view. I don't mean
Yeah.
extreme, modern view of Jewish law, and so they even say 18 minutes.
Yeah, it's a minhag. A minhag is a minhag. All right, now he says we're continuing the law of 8. He says, V'noshim shemadlikin haneres b'sukkah. Rebecca, your hands up. So if you have another question, if not, better to put it down. So I'll know if you have. Okay, perfect. So v'noshim shemadlikin haneres b'sukkah. Now we're talking about sukkos, right? So if the woman who light the candles in the sukkah, because we eat in the sukkah, and then they move it over from the sukkah to the house. That's not a good custom. We'll see in a second why. Ner shuhu doilik me'erev Shabbos. If you already have a lit candle on Erev Shabbos, better to turn it off and return it back on for on Erev Shabbos. There's two ideas. The idea is the lighting the candles, and the idea of bringing light in for Shabbos. So if you could turn on and off the lights, or to close the lamps and turn them back on, that's better because you're doing it all in the honor of Shabbos. To show that it's being done for Shabbos. I mean, also, if you only have one candle and it's lit, you shouldn't just make the bracha on it, but put it on and light it again. Okay, so we have footnotes number 23, 24, and 25. So on 23, he says, they should not be lit in one place and transferred to another place. This is the correct version. Some editions have a gross error here. I'm not sure what that would be. Okay, number 24 is, and you should not light in one place and transfer to another place. So he says they should, hold on, they should, mouse is jumping here. They should not be lit in a place where the household does not need them, and then transfer to a place where they are needed. So you put them in a room that doesn't require light, and then move it to a place that requires light. That's not a good idea. Why? Because the act of lighting is the mitzvah. It must be done in an appropriate place. What he's basically coming to teach us is it the light or the lighting? So he says the mitzvah is the lighting as opposed to the light. So the person would argue and say, if the idea is to bring light and simcha to the house, what's the difference how I bring the light and simcha to the house? As long as there's light in the house by the table. So what's the difference if I light it in a dark room and then bring it over to the if I light it in a closet that doesn't need light and I bring it to the table? So it says no, the mitzvah is that it's because the act of lighting is the mitzvah, and it must be done in an appropriate place. The Levush, which is a commentary, rules that even if they weren't lit in an appropriate place, it means not just in a closet that doesn't need light, but in a place that they could use the light, they should not be moved to another appropriate place, because you should just keep them where you've lit them. When necessary, however, one may be lenient in this regard, so says the Chai Adam and the Mishnah Berurah. And that I've seen that custom before, where people like to light it on the table, but then they're scared because of fire hazard or what have you, move it to a more safe place. I've seen people move candles after being lit. He says that's not preferable, but it's allowed because you're taking it from one place that it's being lit in the proper place. It's just you're moving it to another proper place. Okay, number 25 is it's not appropriate what they do about moving the sukkah. He doesn't say the reason why. He says Chaya Adam. I guess it's the same idea because you're moving it out of the place of eating. All right. Footnote, law number 9. Now, about lighting candles in the house. Again, this is not your house is not supposed to be lit up on Shabbos where it's just annoying. For instance, to have your lights on in your bedroom is not something preferable, obviously, because you want to sleep. So, but in places that you want light, you should have light. Any place that you need light that you're using, you shouldn't be dark. You shouldn't have the dark room on Shabbos. A lot of people, if they don't have a Shabbos clock today, a lot of houses, especially in Eretz Yisrael, are built with a Shabbos clock where the actual light system is on a timer that you could set. A lot of people don't want to have the dining room, living room lights on at night. That's okay because you're not up then, and that's a waste of electricity. So we have the system of the Shabbos clock for the lights, but some people don't have the Shabbos clock and don't like, and they like to they kind of sit in Shabbos in a little bit of dark because they don't have so many lights on the whole Shabbos. It's not preferable. So he says, you should have light in all the rooms. If you're at home by your wife, if she's making the blessing in one room, even though you're using, let's say, your office for learning Torah or what have you on Shabbos, you don't have to light separate candles, let's say, in your office. Let's say you use your office in the morning to study Torah. So you can't say, well, my wife is only lighting in the kitchen. She doesn't need in the dining room. She doesn't use my office. So I maybe would have to light a separate candle and make a blessing on the office. So the answer is no. It means you should light it for honor of Shabbos, but you don't have to make a blessing. If you're not at home, where your wife is lighting for the general house, and you're in another place, if you have your own room that's for your use, then you do light and bless, even if your wife is lighting at home. However, let's say you're in in a joint room. You're staying in a public place. That are gathered in one room. Everyone's living in one room. Again, so if you have to remember, if you're in a hotel and you leave your light off on Shabbos in your bedroom because you don't want to be sleeping in the light, so it doesn't help that you have a private room because anyways you don't have light in that room. And the only place that you're going to use light is the dining room of the hotel. So that's considered that there's many people that are using one room. So what do you do in such a situation? So then you start liknes neiros. You should join, means you don't have to light that every man lights themselves. You could become a partner in the candle buying, means you have ownership in the light. One person will light on behalf, and he will have others in mind. So let's say there's a Shabbaton of a whole bunch of men getting together. No one wants to have light in their bedroom, or it's forbidden to have an open candle in the bedroom. So you'd be lighting in the public eating area. Everyone's together. So then you have to have an investment in the candle. That's the custom. People will give a quarter, a nickel, $1 towards the candle, and have one person represent to light for everyone. And let's say okay. Let's say there's not a unique room, but you're just a guest at a host who's Jewish. She lives at home, and there's a family that you're staying at. That happens all the time. So you have guests for Shabbos. So what would happen in such a case? Do I have to light if I'm a guest in someone's home? Do I have to light for Shabbos a candle? And it's that you don't have to light. Why? Given the woman of the house, Madlekes Allah says she has him in mind. So you don't even have to take ownership, because in the case of the hotel, you're not a guest with the people at the hotel. You're equally participating in the meal as they are. They're all paying towards it, what have you. But if you're a guest in someone's home, and a lot of people have guests for Shabbos, so then the woman's lighting for you in the house. You don't have to participate. Now, what about the yeshiva boys? Right? So the yeshiva boys live in yeshiva, they have a dormitory, etc. Let's say yeshiva boys who are learning away from home. If they have a special unique room for the boys, so then, like we did before, someone has to represent and light on behalf of them with a blessing. Same idea, everyone should chip in for ownership of the candle, and one person would light on behalf of the chevra. Utrichim shi'aner stoiklim ach yavet sham. And if you're eating, hold on, Aaron. If you're eating, let's say yeshiva boys go to learn, what have you, the idea that the candles shouldn't be just lit and be out by the time you come home, but the time the boys come to the dining room, let's say, they should be lit up so everyone could take joy in the Shabbos candles. Let's say there's no general room for everyone. So now there's a problem. They don't have any woman that's going to light for them anywhere because they're not married. It's not like their wife is lighting for them someplace else. And they have no special room that they hang out in. So what do they do for Shabbos candles? So here he says, so here's we're talking about a situation where you're not really a guest at the house, but there's someone who owns the place, but you don't have a special room. So it's then you would give money toward the person who's lighting in the house, and they would light on your behalf. So it's not like someone from the group is lighting, and it's not that you're totally a guest of that person. There's kind of an ownership, and that person, because you partnered with them, you gave them some money. So then you give a little bit of prutas, a small amount of money. So then they have you in mind. But let's say again, you're like a hoizbacher, you live in someone's house, where it means you don't live, but you always eat at a certain person's house. So that's considered like your family member of any sort of lishativ, then you don't have to participate. Meaning if you're not just kind of paying dormitory fees, but you're actually a guest in the house, even if you eat, you don't have to be living there, but you're coming to eat at the house, so you're enjoying the light of the house, so she's lighting on your behalf. Okay, Aaron, you had some questions. Aaron?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Nope.
Okay, you hear me now?
Nope.
Oh, wait, hold on. No, hold on 1 second. Changing over.
There we go.
Okay. So you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So my question is twofold. Number one is that using Hanukkah as the example, with my son always in yeshiva till now, Hanukkah, they all had to light their own. They had one big place, like you said, but they all had to light their own. And how does that differ? And number two is that when you're at your parents' house, you get married or you're not married, but now you're going home to have Shabbos. Do you have to, is there any difference in the laws of lighting when you weren't living there? Like my son comes home sometimes from the dorms. What is the rule change at all because it's your parents?
So in Hanukkah, when it comes to dormitories in Hanukkah, the halacha is you all the boys try to light their own menorah in, let's say, the dining room and trying to find their own window. They shouldn't be making it like one big bonfire because the mitzvah isn't lighting. Each person has a mitzvah to light candles. That's the custom. Each person lights candles. So it's brought down. I heard a halacha shir over Hanukkah by Rabbi Vadi Yosef's son has a radio show, 10 minutes every day. On law. So before on Hanukkah, he was speaking about that the Bachrim would lie in the dormitory and try to find kind of a unique spot. So Hanukkah is not exactly the same as Shabbos. Shabbos just needs the room to be lit up. It's not so much the idea that each person lights their Hanukkah candles. As far as your son coming home, when he comes home, he's no different at all than having a guest for Shabbos. Just like if you had a guest for Shabbos who's staying at your house, the woman would light on behalf of that guest because the person's a guest for the entire Shabbos to participate in the meals, etc. The question would be, and sometimes this does happen, if the person is staying in your home only for sleeping, right? And that happens a lot in Eretz Yisrael, where there's, it's not like in America where, people say, can I come to your house for Shabbos? It's, in America where people would have extra bedrooms. In Eretz Yisrael, that's more rare. People have enough bedrooms for their family if there's enough bedrooms. Israel is very limited in space. So when someone says to come over for Shabbos, there's always people sometimes will have a meal, but they won't have a sleeping place. So you have many times where a person says, can I sleep by you for Shabbos? But I won't eat, I mean the meals out. So there you're not really part of the family. You're not sitting at the table. And you're not a guest. You don't even have a unique room because it's kind of the dining room. So then, the best thing would be to give, that's the situation where you would give, like the yeshiva boy would give money, and I've had that before, where a girl even, who's careful, would give money towards the candles, if she herself doesn't want to light, so she's kind of taken care of as far as the candle goes, or to buy her own candle. But your son coming home, that's like any guest at home, and your wife is lighting on his behalf.
But 1 week he did come home, just like you said. He was not going to eat by us because they were having a Shabbaton with all the Brooklyn and people, and they were meeting by other people's houses to eat and to pray without going to the regular shul he usually goes to. So would he have to? My wife and me, we wouldn't take money from him.
Yeah, and no, it's not money because you need money for your because you don't want to spend money on him. But it would be a question of his participation. I still think in the case of your son, because although he may not be eating the actual pseudos by you, but there's a certain familiarity and comfort that he has in your home, whether it's having a coffee in the morning or sitting down, that he's still. I mean, he has his relationship is not dependent. I mean, if you have sometimes a person you don't even know, and they just literally take a bedroom and you don't see them again. You know what I mean? That's different than your son who hangs out in the house. So even if he's not eating the Suda Shabbos, there's other kind of things that he's using that he could rely on your wife's lighting.
Okay.
All right, law number 10. Here's the question about that when it comes to women, not men, that if there are more than one woman in the house, they all light candles. Each one should make a bracha on their own candle. Again, here, the idea is light, oira is simcha. Light brings happiness. So the more light is, more happiness. So the same thing you could argue about men, but because it's not their mitzvah, and so we don't see that so much. That's a custom by men. But one thing you should be careful. Try not to use the same candelabra, kind of because you're not connected. So, but in the worst case, let's say you have a candelabra. People have, let's say a bunch of girls are at a home, at a house, and there's one candelabra with 7 lights. So each one lights one of the arms of the candelabra. That's preferably should not be done. But he says if there's no other way, that's also permitted. Let's see, 26. He says, he quotes the Shulchan Aruch in 27. He says the Magen Avram Pri Megadim relies on the ruling that the benefit of poor women who cannot afford their own candelabra, so therefore you could rely on using a single candelabra. Okay. Now this is a complicated question. The question of water, right? A lot of us who I know we don't have that custom, but a lot of people have the custom. This is one of the things that Rabbi Raskin from London talks about, where you would go to a home. You don't see it with kerosene because kerosene doesn't work like that with water. But when you're using olive oil, some people, and you have a glass, some people will pour half a glass of water, and because the oil sits on top of the water, and on top of that, you'd put the oil, and then they would put the wick, the floating wick. Is that permissible? Is that permitted? Are you allowed to fill the glass with water, then add to that olive oil, and then light the candles? And many people do it. So what's the basis for that? So let's see the question, the issue, and then we'll see the ruling about the olive oil. So he says like this: Ein litain mayim afilu mi'ba'oid yoim l'toich nekev ha'menorah shemachnisin sham es haner shel chelev el shel shaiva. You're not allowed to, even prior to Shabbos, means on Friday afternoon, to put water into the receptacle, the hole that holds the wax or fat. We said before, some places in Europe they used fat candles, so to say, to put out the fire when it reaches the water. Why? So when the water reaches, so let's say you have a cup that, today, there's not that much space for a candle and water. And if there was water, it'd be mamish a little bit. But let's say you had a kind of space. You could drop a candle and the candle will be dropped in water. And you want, the thinking is that you don't want to burn out the whole candle, right? So it goes out when it reaches a certain when the candle. Let's say you have a cup that has a larger than the candle, and you drop the candle in the cup, and you want only half the candle to burn. So you'd fill up half a cup of water, and when it reaches halfway, so the water covers the flame and puts it out. Is that permitted? And you're setting this up before Shabbos. It says no. However, if that's mamish, something that's needed, it's not so strict if you place the water there before the day, when it's still day. It means because you only set it up and you didn't set it up on Shabbos. You're not allowed to do. One of the prohibitions in Shabbos is that you're not allowed to cause something that's for sure going to happen. To pour the water in on Shabbos, even though right now you're not doing anything because the fire hasn't reached yet, but because it's going to reach and it's a sure thing, unless the candle blows out, it's going to reach there. That's called psik reishel yamis. It's kind of you're setting up the transgression on Shabbos itself. But here they're being makel, they're being lenient in the case where you put the water there on Friday, but not on Shabbos. However, let's say you have a candle, and underneath you want to have a bowl of water to catch the oil or the kind of the pieces of flame that may fall out of the menorah. That if there's any sparks that fall out, should be put out by this bowl of water. That he says is iser gomer, is absolutely not allowed. You're not allowed to have the water, set the water there to catch the sparks of fire before Shabbos. But just to have an empty bowl, just not to stain or something your tablecloth, that's okay. But the water part is the prohibition. Even once it's dark, it's okay to put we'll see all the reasoning in a second, to put a plate or something, even on Shabbos, but it's an empty. Hold on, Aaron. Let's first get to the law because there's reasoning over here. So after we learn the law, we'll get the questions. Because sparks on their own have no substance, so therefore that's okay. But the water part, we'll see in a second why, because what you're causing to the bowl is prohibited on Shabbos. How about I'm not trying to catch the sparks, to put out the sparks, but I'm trying to put out. I don't want the oil to stain my table. So I could put like a plate there to catch the oil, not the sparks, or the wax. That's usher on Shabbos. Why? Because then you're causing muktzah. Means the vessel itself was permitted to touch. You're causing, once the oil drips on it, it becomes muktzah. It becomes you're not allowed to touch it. So you're causing muktzah on Shabbos. You take a kli that was usable and make it unusable, that's not allowed on Shabbos. But to place it there before Shabbos, that's again permitted. So we have so far 4 cases. One case is placing water in the receptacle for candles. Second case is hanging a bowl of water to catch to put out the fire. Number 3 is putting an empty bowl to put out to just catch the sparks. Number 4 is to put a empty bowl on Shabbos to catch the oil and the wax. That's not allowed because you are turning you're making a vessel that was movable to be unmovable. It's called muktzah on Shabbos. And the 5th case is to put that plate there before Shabbos. That's allowed because you're not causing muktzah on Shabbos. Okay, hold on a second. But once the oil does drip, you can't touch it anymore. Because now it became receptacle for Naveira, which was the candle oil. The oil itself is not permitted to touch. That oil carries it onto the bowl. What happens if you just put it there because you're worried, but it doesn't drip at the end? The thinking itself doesn't cause it to become unusable. Even if you did it before Shabbos, you're allowed to then move it again because it didn't change it. Nothing changed in the vessel itself. It was just there in case. Yes, Aaron.
Okay, I'm using this as an example. So Bris is on Saturday. So on Friday night, there's a party. Some people read, some people just talk and eat, or whatever. You're eating your meal at your house. So you have to light the candles. Now you're going to leave. You can't leave candles unattended. So you just gave us a bunch of things you can't do. What can you do to make it safe so you could leave the candle lit and not unlit it and not move it?
Okay, so there's 2 questions over here. Putting the water, he says, in an extreme case, to put the water in the candles is before Shabbos is permissible. We're going to get to the olive oil in a second. What you're supposed to do in such a situation is plan ahead. Is either use candles or stuff that will go out before Shabbos. It's only in an extreme situation where you could put water in the candles. So you have to plan ahead again, strategize ahead what you should be doing as opposed to be creating a crisis later. So to place water Let's first see what the problems of the water is underneath the bowl. He says, what's the reason you can't put a bowl of water to get the sparks? So he says like this: it is forbidden to cause extinguishment of the sparks. You can't cause that the fire. You by putting the water there, you're causing the sparks to go out. Sparks are fire. For instance, by raising the vessel on Shabbos to catch the sparks, so you're causing them to go out. In order to prevent this, it is forbidden to place the vessel of water under the candle, even on Erev Shabbos. So says the Magen Avram. For additional reasoning, you have to look in the Mishnah Brura. Because you're not allowed to put out the fire, and water puts out the fire, whereas an empty bowl does not put out the fire. Now, in the case of where you're putting in a little bit of water in the Nekev, that seems to be, it's not causing the fire to go out. It's the reason why the wax is different than the sparks, because I guess the wax is just underneath. You have to look into. I have to figure. I have to check why putting water in an extreme case before Shabbos in a candle holder, I mean wax, is permitted, and it's placing a receptacle to catch the sparks is prohibited. Seemingly it should be the same thing.
Sparks cause fire.
What?
If the sparks, just for instance, we have a candle plate so that the sparks won't touch like a piece of paper. But I don't see any sparks, but whatever would cause a fire. But I'm using sparks. If it would touch my tablecloth, sparks might catch it on fire.
No, that's why he says to put an empty plate, you're allowed to. If you were to put water on that plate, that would be prohibited.
But with Hanukkah candles, if I know I'm going to someone's house, so we light it, and we, for some foreseen reason, happened only once in my life yet, but you had to leave before the 30 minutes. So, and you want to light in the right time. So we light it in the sink so that if it would tip over, there's no fire.
Yeah, but you don't have water in the sink.
But
He says like this. Let me just say it in English. No water should be put even by day before Shabbos into the socket of the candle stick when you place it in the towel of the wax candle so that it will be extinguished on reaching it. I think the difference between the wax candle, even though you shouldn't do it, but in case it's necessary, it says you're allowed to do it, whereas the water underneath, the bowl underneath with water is prohibited totally. I believe I have to check the difference between the two. Let me check the difference.
Okay, but let me ask you just one other question.
But you put in the sink is different if the sink is empty. If the sink is full of water, it's the same idea.
Okay, so just that was for Hanukkah. I wouldn't do that. Whatever.
No, it has nothing to do with Hanukkah or Shabbos. It's not about Shabbos candles or Hanukkah candles. It's about
the water.
It's about putting out the fire.
I'm just going to mention this. When you mentioned though putting water in and letting it float with the oil, 1 year before I bought the Easy Lights that are pre-filled, I used to add water.
Okay, I'm going to get to the water.
Okay, but now let me
I'll go in a second.
Finish this. Maybe for safety reasons. So let's say you spend 2 hours eating your meal. What's the shortest amount of time the candle has to be lit for Shabbos?
It should be lit throughout eating the meal. It should bring light to the meal.
Because most candles I see are like 3 hours for Shabbos candles.
Yeah, that's fine. Most of the time, that covers the times. And also, we're more lenient because we have other sources of light.
Okay.
Okay, so number 30, he said, 31 is, so it's forbidden to move a vessel because you're neutralizing the vessel from its state of readiness, and which is forbidden. It means to put under a bowl to not get the sparks, but to get the oil. Since the vessel was until now allowed to be moved because it was just a regular bowl, and it is now forbidden to be moved because it became muktzah. We'll learn about muktzah in a second, because now it became through the oil, which is forbidden to touch. It's part of a fire. Now that extended to the bowl that the oil dripped into. It is as though you dismantled it on Shabbos from its readiness. So says Rashi, Masechtas Shabbos, the Rambam, etc. Explains that since you are not allowed to move it, it is as though you cemented it in its place on Shabbos. So it's more, the Rashi says the idea is as if you made it unmovable, like you literally actually went from something that's kind of movable to cementing it to the table, which is not allowed. This is, again, he says, this is a rabbinical prohibition, it's not a biblical, for there is no actual dismantling or building taking place. In the case of the sparks that there's with no water, the sparks do not make the vessel muktzah because they don't remain there, they burn out. Okay, now I want to get to the olive oil question. A lot of women do that they put in oil. So Rabbi Roskin says like this. There's what we've done over here is we're creating in this water that's putting out the candle or the water that's putting out the sparks is that you're extinguishing a fire that otherwise, if not for that water, would have continued to light. When a woman adds water to her bowl or her cup that she lights Shabbos candles in, all she really has to do the same effect, if it's just about how long the candle lights, just put in less oil. Why would you put the water in? You're only putting the water in for not because you want to put out the fire, because then you could just put in the same amount of oil in an empty bowl. The only reason you're putting in the water is to lift up the oil so it's easier to light. Right? That's why we do it. So if we put in only a half a cup of oil, it's more difficult to light. And we maybe don't want the fire to be burning so low. So we're just lifting up the fire. We're not changing anything. So therefore the water just is like a base. It's not that the water puts out the candle. The candle would have burnt out anyways if you put in the same amount of oil. You're just lifting up the oil, so now that's the water. And because water could hold it up, that's the idea. It's not that the water is putting out the fire. Because you don't need the water to put out the fire. You could just put the oil in that same amount and let it sit on the bottom. So because it's only lifting up the oil, therefore we find in women's houses, they're allowed to we find the water putting in. It's different than where you put the bowl of water underneath that's meant to put out the fire. That's its whole purpose. It's not there to lift up the oil. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you understand. So Aaron, the water is not an issue. It's only an issue if you're using it to put out the fire, not to lift up the oil.
Okay.
Let's do one more law. Toiv lahaniach es hachalas ala shulchan koidim shemadlikim es haneros. This is a custom, and there's many reasons for it. Like it says in Simon 89, Sif Beis, that the custom is if we're putting the candles on the table. So we don't want the table to be basis, to be a foundation of something that's prohibited, because the candles, again, even though it's a great mitzvah, fire on Shabbos is also, you're not allowed to touch fire on Shabbos. So then the whole table kind of becomes part of the story of the candelabra. If you put the challah on first, it becomes first a basis, it becomes first the foundation for a mitzvah, for the permissible, and the challah overrides the candles. Some people have the custom to put a chumash on so it should make it permissible to move. So it comes first connected to the chumash, then it comes to the candles. I think even some people will put it on the tray so they can move the tray. I'm not sure if that's.
What do you mean move the tray? You said we're going to move the candle once it's lit.
Yeah, but see that the same idea is what's the problem? I'm not talking about holding the candelabra. Let's say you have a table, you want to move the table. If the whole structure is the basis, is the foundation for the candle, everything becomes prohibited from the candle. The candle brings its prohibition to the entire structure. So if you have a table, you can't move the table because the table is holding up the candles, and the candles is makes the whole table muktzah. If you already have the chalas on, so the chalas override the candles because it came first. So the table first was a basis, it was a foundation for the mitzvah, something permissible. So you can't it's not good enough to put on dishes, something that's not a mitzvah. So because a mitzvah would override just regular dishes. Right? If I put my plate on the table, seemingly my plate's permissible to use. Why is that? What the plate should also override the candles. But challah is a mitzvah, so the mitzvah overrides the mitzvah of candles.
So what's the first thing you should put on the Shabbos table?
Your challah. I mean, after you set the table, you put obviously your tablecloth, etc., and your plastic, whatever you put on, and then you put your challah board and put the challahs, and then place the candles. Even
Okay.
when we're not even talking about on Shabbos, talking about even Friday.
Okay, but now my question is, okay, you know what a buffet table is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what if you use because we don't put the candles on the table. We put them on part of the buffet, which is right behind the table or beside it.
Mm-hmm. And do you use that buffet table for other things?
Yeah. But
And
the section that we have the candle stays there. It never really moves.
you don't move the table around.
No, it's the table stays where it is, and the
No,
candelabra
so as long as
stays.
you're not moving the table, you could put things on and off the table. It doesn't make anything that hits the table to be permitted. You can't move the table though. If you want to be able to move the table, so some people will put, like, let's say in your case, you would put, let's say, a chumash on the tray that has the candles, right? So like this kind of chumash is something holy. I have to check.
Because I put okay, so I put my prayer book, I put beside it, but not on the tray. We have a tray for all candles.
No, I understand. But if you were to put the prayer book or a chumash on the table before you put the candles, it would be similar to putting the chalas.
Oh,
But let's
okay.
wait till we get to those laws. Yes, Barbara, you're on mute.
Yeah, I just had a question. So we can have the Shabbat candles on a table that we don't move, that's near the table where we eat. That's okay. We don't have to have the Shabbat candles on the table that we're eating.
It's preferable to try to put them on the table, but it's not again, if it doesn't work, then you have it nearby that you see it and it's bringing light to the food, to the table. That's also okay. Some women who like more than, let's say, one candelabra will try to have something on the table itself. That's preferable, but a lot of times it's not practical for many reasons.
Is there a certain shape that the candle should be?
I mean, candles or the candelabra?
No, I'm saying for the candles, because I mean, I've seen tea lights. People use tea lights. People use long candles. I'm just saying there's no special shape the candle has to be, or
No. I mean,
does the candelabra have to be certain shape?
No. So some people do like to try to keep the round long ones. It should be a special candle for Shabbos. People don't light, like, scented candles that you would maybe light in other places. It's regular wax candles.
Okay, but the shape doesn't matter, because I've seen sometimes we use tea lights, especially when you travel.
Tea lights are fine. There's all types of candles that are fine for table candles.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Laila Tov, any questions before we close off? All right, Laila Tov, Chodesh Tov, take care.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.